Welcome to this podcast episode in Starseed Gathering, this lovely sacred place where I help people sharing their spiritual business. You will hear about a specific guest today that has so many gifts for the world, and I'm very excited for you to be here. Just open your heart and allow anything that is shared during this conversation to touch your soul and your heart on the highest level. And if you need any more support, you can contact the guest with the links below and myself also linked below. So wishing you a beautiful podcast episode listening right now. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to Starseed Gathering. I'm super excited to have Darlene with me today. She supports empathic children through their parents. So she's going to explain what she does. We're very, very happy to have you here. Please share who you are, where you're at. We want to know more about you, beautiful soul.
Thank you. It's really exciting to be here, just talking about the work that we all do in the world. It's something, I'm 56, so what we're able to talk about freely now is very different from a couple decades ago. So this is just like opens up my heart. So I have always been a teacher. I was a preschool teacher for 25 years, and all of my schooling, education, and training is for kids, training teachers, working with parents. And in 2005, I had a cancer diagnosis, and it kind of threw me for a loop, obviously. And that's when I had my spiritual awakening. I was visited by angels, and they told me to just tap in, to start listening to my heart, start listening to my intuition, which I had when I was a little girl. I was an indigo and very psychic, and that had been gone. And at this point in 2005, I was 37 and reawoken all my senses. And they said, just listen to us. It was Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, and Archangel Gabriel, and my grandma. So they all came to help support me when I was in shock a couple of days after the diagnosis, and led me to the bookstore. And there in the bookstore, they showed me rows and rows of books called Reiki Hands-on Healing was the title of all these books. I sat there all day and read them all, and then started my Reiki journey, my energy healing, opening up my psychic abilities and all the other capacities. So 19 years later, I had not gone back to teaching or working with parents. I've been working with people just in general about, mentoring them through their spiritual awakening. And then a few weeks ago, we're now in 2024, I had a reading, and someone said, guess what? It's time to go back to your learning, to your training. Part of it is to heal your inner child, that psychic little girl who was told, everything was her imagination, and to just stop, making up stories. So here I am now creating new programs out in the world to help parents with their highly sensitive, empathic children who are now starseeds. This is a new generation from when I was born, and, the indigo child. We're now in a completely different energy frequency on the earth. And these children who are coming in are completely rewired differently than kids were decades ago. So I tune in and I help the parents. And it's very individualized, because each of these children, even though there are certain traits that tend to be common, like, a lot of them don't like crowds, they're sensitive to noise, they have sensory processing complications or challenges, just so many traits that they have in common, but yet each of them are going to need something different. And that's where I come in, working with the parent to figure out what is that special need that family actually needs to put on the plate, on the table. Let's create an action plan together. And often the parent is empathic as well. So there is time and room and space for supporting the parent who's empathic, feeling their child being upset or shy or fearful. So there's multi-layers to this, and it's just really opening up now. I've pivoted my business after many years, so a lot is being created and a lot is still on the back end. But the first thing I'm putting out there will be a couple of support groups, support
beautiful.
circles. Yeah.
Okay. This is really cool. I love, how they say, right? A lot of us, or a lot of our clients will come and they will be like, what's my purpose? Why am I on this planet? And then I remember a lot of the times it's like, well, look behind you. What have you gone through? What have you done? You've created your soul purpose your whole life. Like, look at it. Like,
Yes.
You've built it with the experiences, yes, the trauma, but not just the trauma, the type of work you've done, the type of training you've done, the type of connections you've had. So I love that they made you go kind of circle back to this, because it really feels new earth to me. This is very beautiful. It's like, it feels like, well, this is you reconnecting to this ability to connect with children, this ability to connect to parents, and this ability of you having reconnected through all of those years, your connection to the divine, to make it all work together like a puzzle. I really love that.
Yeah.
This is so exciting.
And the secret sauce are dragons.
Oh, yeah, I'm so excited. Okay. Tell me more.
So I was in a meditation about 10 years ago, Meet Your Dragon. It was just, my friend was doing a workshop, and at the end she had time and she said, let's do this fun workshop. And while she was leading the meditation, all of a sudden I saw my dragon. I had never worked with them before. Fairies, sure, not dragons. So my dragon came in and dropped into my awareness an entire children's book.
Wow.
And it has to do with helping children with the colors. It's using the colors of their chakras to help them feel better. And a lot of people who work with dragons, they work with the elements, like the water dragon, the earth dragon, the wood dragon. These are animals with colors, and the colors specifically help the child with these emotions that they're going through. So, like, for example, the red dragon will be who they can tune into to help when they're not feeling safe. And it's a story about 7 different dragons, and the children are able to choose which one that they would like. And so in this reading that I had a few weeks ago about I need to come back to the children, and partially, for my own inner child healing. And they said, this book that you've been wanting to publish for 10 years, it's not a book. It's more of this, it's an interactive type of program, or it has its own moving parts to it. So it's just not this, it's not a stationary book. So that's part of what I'm putting together in the background.
Wow. Yeah, it looks like it has its own consciousness. Really what I'm feeling into. Like it's going to be able to support you with the children, with the parents even. It feels like a medium between the two to understand each other, even maybe having more words into like, okay, this is what's going on. Which dragon would that be, right? So what's going on? Maybe that's going to be kind of the link to make them understand each other better. I love that. This is so creative and higher dimensional. I love it.
And yeah, what's so cool is I have to, take my ego out of it and let them direct me. I've been struggling with this idea since I heard about it. Like, let's get that book out of my in my laptop and open it up and let it fly, let it soar. And the human part of me is trying to control it and figure out this moving part and how is that going to work. And what I'm finding is that doesn't work. Like you said, it has its own consciousness, and I'm not, it's getting a little frustrated with me because I'm not letting it guide me. So
Wow.
That's part of our lesson, right? To get out of our own way. And this is a perfect example of here's this beautiful gift they've given me, and I have to let myself be the vessel that it can come through and not be this crazy, old lady trying to control it. So,
Yeah, I understand. And I think every time, like I felt the same way every time I have to step outside of my comfort zone in my spiritual business, and everybody that watches us that is a spiritual healer or whatever you're doing, if it's in the spiritual realm or even other business, I guess, but I know more this type of
yeah.
business, you're gonna get out, gonna need to get outside of your comfort zone a lot of the times, and then the messages come and you're like, nah, no. Just your whole ego, I guess that's ego, right? The mind is like, nope,
Yes.
nope, nope, no, this is crazy. People are gonna think it's crazy. It doesn't make
Oh,
sense. Why would you do that? For me, it happened with light language. So I channel light language and I was channeling it for myself, right? And it was nice. I was like, ooh, this is healing. And then at some point I started not only speaking it, but singing it. And I was like, ooh, okay, this is more intense than the first kind of light language I was channeling, but I love it. And then at some point, my guys were like, yeah, well, you have this gift, but it's actually to share it, right? To share it with the world. And I has a bit like, oh my God, like, what are gonna people say? How am I gonna do that? And they were like, yes, online, but in person too. And I was like, oh, what? And you're gonna have to like sing in front of people because that's gonna be the healing. And I was like, oh my God, am I gonna be able to do that? And then at some point, I saw the ripple, right? And how it was helping and how many people would be actually attracted to that. Like I had no idea. It took time because I had to like believe in it, right?
yeah.
And then the ripple and everybody that wanted to come and attend those sessions and how many people commenting on how the healing through the light language was supportive to them. So now it's part of my business every time I have a session. But still, it's like how spirit pushes us. And it's really trusting that it's for the highest good of this planet, the highest good of our clients, and the highest good of ourselves and their business.
That's interesting. I think that for me has been the hardest. Well, the getting out of my own way and the trusting part. Am I hearing that right? And always asking other people, what does this sound like? Does this sound like it would work? It's like, no, they're telling me what to do. Stop asking, the peanut gallery.
Right, right. And it's difficult because I do a channeling course where I help people channel their own guides and their higher self and connect to their intuition and see how their own message come through and be aware and believing in it. And it's every time it's exactly that, right? Yeah, but am I making this up? Because maybe that's not right. But it's like, nope, now it's your mind. It's like you had a connection. The message is gonna be a few words. It's not gonna be like 3 hours of like chatter in your mind. This is your mind talking to you and it gets complicated, right? And sometimes it's because the messages we're not ready to listen to them or we're
Yeah.
not ready to move towards this action. So it's like, I don't know. That's not what I had in mind. It's like, yeah, you're not really controlling that whole thing anyway.
You've got to remember that part.
Right, right. So what's coming up for you in the next weeks and the next months? Like, how are you talked about workshops, I think, or like support
So
groups?
I have an in-person workshop coming up here. I'm in Portland, Oregon. An in-person workshop at a fun metaphysical store that I go to. And I'm also going to be creating online support circles for parents, especially right now. It's back to school time. It's the end of August. And this is when I remember this was the scariest part of the year for me as a child, getting ready and having to go back to school. So I figured this is what the timing is perfect. So I am doing that right after we talk. I'm going to be scheduling those support circles. And I
Beautiful.
be if anyone, if you know star seeds or star seeds with children, I will have those links to you and ready to go.
Perfect. And
do you work with schools? Like, do you have like a connection? Because I mean, they knew you probably from your old work, but do you still have those connections? Did you have to make new ones?
Oh,
How did
this
that go?
this will be very new because the audience won't be mainstream typical
Right.
the schools that I was involved in. Um, so yeah, this is also about my abilities to connect and not be so shy and step out of my comfort zone and talk to people I've never met before, perhaps homeschooling groups,
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
different different opportunities like that.
So
So yeah,
yeah,
it's going to be new.
any new Earth parents out there, if you need any support, you can join Darlene probably online too, right? I imagine that
It
you're
will.
gonna offer
I
something
I
online.
see. I would like most of it to be online because this is like I was going to say galactic. This is a global, situation. The Starseeds looking for support. So,
Wow. Yeah, I love that because we can feel it, right? I mean, I was also a star, well, I'm still a star seed, so I was a star seed back then, right? And you're right, like coming back to school and fitting in, and I'm a Pisces, so Pisces are very mutable. So yeah, I would mute myself into change myself into which groups I was with, but not feeling like I had my place or fitting in anywhere. And it was really difficult. Yeah, I was super sensitive. Jesus, super sensitive and attracting those, those students in school that were not feeling well and they had issues and they were in foster homes and I was like I wanted to support and help them, but I had no tools, right? And then I became a social worker that no I guess
wow.
the path was like really written in the sky. Probably it was right. But I love, yeah, this type of support and even those that are homeschooling, right? Because the sensitive children, they are sensitive with their brothers and sisters, with their parents, with what they're going through, with the emotions, with what they feel in their environment, with everything, right? And
And
that's our awareness of that helps. Yeah.
some of them who are being homeschooled is because of that very reason. The school system is not supportive or even designed for any child. Really, I was in it, so I can say, it just keeps us in this box and it limits children from expanding and exploring their imagination. And then if you take a child who's highly sensitive, they immediately would want to say they have this disorder or that disorder.
Right.
And the parents aren't given very many tools or solutions, long-term solutions. Oftentimes it's for the moment or that particular, I've seen like an IEP we have here in America where the teachers of each year sit down and they talk with the families and they create a plan for the year. That's not long term. So next year, the kid's going to be anxious about the following year. What's going to happen in the following year? So a lot of the tools I have for the parents, they're not even tools. It's about let's listen to what your kid wants and needs first of all.
Right.
And then
Right.
intuitively and as a partnership, I can help them plan, you know, action steps for life, not just, year by year or both.
Right. Right. I love that.
So yes, the homeschoolers, a lot of them are because they're not, the parents aren't understood or the kids aren't understood and they're trying to keep them safe. And I would love to be the gap for the child so they don't feel isolated as a homeschooled child. What's interesting though, a lot of the homeschool kids I've met seem really adjusted really well, after the homeschool years. But I'm sure there are kids who aren't as well adjusted, who may have challenges being out in the real world or whatever you want to call it. So I just want to fill in the gap and make sure all kids feel safe and like they belong and give them some grace. And the
Right.
parent too. It's really more about, I say, my tagline is for the parents, I empower you so you can empower them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, because this time of their year too, right? Being a child and being with their parents, I think is beautiful if they're homeschool. I mean, at least they don't have all of the programming and all of the rest that's being like pushed onto
Yes.
them at school,
Right.
right? And yeah, you're right. Like if you're maybe more hyperactive, maybe you need to like some exercise between your lessons,
And
right?
that's not always possible in a regular setting.
Of
Some
course not.
schools try, but most of them, they have like 40 kids in a classroom. They don't, have time for Joe to go run around the school from, and a lot of times if they don't fit into the classroom structure, they try to do something to make them fit. So that's,
Right, exactly. And that's when the diagnosis, the medication, and everything else comes
yeah.
along, right?
And that's why I left the school, because they were diagnosing and medicating the 3 and 4 year olds I was working with.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, can they just grow up and be themselves, right? We all have, and I mean, we all have our own unique way of experiencing life. But yeah, you're right. All of this boxy way of thinking, right? It's difficult for
Yeah.
those that are not fitting the box.
And what was really sad to me was those children that I was seeing that were getting these diagnoses at such a young age. I could see where the family was having chaos and challenges themselves, like the structure of the family, the stress that the parents were carrying. Nobody was considering that. And I found it odd. We had psychologists would come into the classroom, social workers. I would sit down with the parents, and really nobody wanted to hear, hey, let's look at the family dynamics.
Right.
What's going on here? What can we change at home before, you know, put giving them a medication? Try that
Mhm.
first. I,
Right, right,
and so that was in the early 2000s, and that's when I left. So
right.
now I'm back with tools.
Exactly. With a toolbox. Yeah, a toolbox. And I remember when I was a teenager, I started having my own issues and I started pushing the limits in many circumstances and many settings because, I was going through my own thing and nobody was really asking me how it's really feeling. So I was reactive, right? I was just pushing the limits and not caring about anything. And yeah, and then I could see my results at school were lower and lower. My grades were lower, and then my parents were not happy. And back then there was a bit. It was starting. I think it was. We didn't have so much like diagnosis and medication at the school I was yet. But yeah, like the people are not. We're not stopping to see like what's going on at home, like what's going
Mhm.
on, so that you feel this way because there's a reason, right? You're of course there's like the traits of the person as you were saying, like the kid, there's their own unique traits, but sometimes what's happening in the home has a big impact, well, most of the time has a big impact in the children. They don't have the tools yet, right, to do anything. They don't know how to deal with stuff,
Right.
right?
And yeah, and the parents also aren't aware of their stress and their reactions to their children's challenges. And yeah, that's why I want to, when I work with the parents, I want to work. Let's start with you. Let's start with you, the parent, and see, what we can do to help calm your nervous system. If that's the case, it may not be what they're open to. So in my mind, that's where I would like to eventually go with them. But of course, I'll support them, whatever that looks like for them, whatever the safest,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
creation will be to help support them. But my secret goal in my heart is really focusing on what is the family dynamics and how can I help the parents, because then that will be their answer.
Yeah, because that ripples, right? Mm, the most centered and probably most tools that they have, like they feel equipped, right? And they feel like, okay, I know what to do when this happens. And oh, I was triggered and I kind of pushed my stuff onto my children or my partner or whatever,
Exactly.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, we're humans here on earth, right? Nobody's perfect.
The role modeling, the kids will model what they see. And if they're empathic, they're going to feel what their parents are feeling, or caregivers, because we have a lot of grandparents raising kids these days too.
Right. So you have like the generation gap, right, into that and the way of
Oh, yeah.
very interesting. It must be very interesting. Like the way they see things and the way like two generation down, how they want to express themselves and be different. I think the new generation is like, no, this is how I am. So accept me how I am. Like there's more of this like I feel like they want to be their own self. Like I don't think they're gonna allow so much of the conformity to get in and mold them if they can, right? They will
Right.
just tell you how it is.
And
And
an older, like a grandparent, I'm from the generation where, you're the kids, you don't talk much, sometimes you don't talk until you have permission, or children had very specific expectations of their behaviors. And so I can imagine a grandparent with a starseed. If the
right,
grandparent doesn't understand, they will seem as if they're being disrespectful, or words like that. And it's so much about, let's understand what they're trying to tell you, and it's going to come across disrespectful perhaps because they don't have any other tools, so let's give them those tools.
right. And I mean perspective on that, right? If you have the old school perspective, it's very different than
Yep.
than the child.
Compassion for everybody involved. That's my game.
Exactly.
That's my game.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So if people want to connect with you, we'll leave your social media links, your website, and if you're in her area, which I've never actually visited, but it's on my list.
Really?
Yeah, I would love to see Portland.
It's a beautiful area. Like I go to the forest every day. It's
Yeah, that's what I heard. It was like really nature. Well, I lived in Vancouver for many years. I think like this whole coast,
yeah.
like northern coast part, it looks alike, but I've never been to Portland, so that's on my list.
The Pacific Northwest. Yep, it's the
Yeah,
rainforest. So all very
right, right. A little warmer, I think, though, on your
probably a
side.
little bit. Yep. Yeah. So really the best place, I'm on Facebook, and my personal profile, I share most of my work, whether it's daily life or my business. And I also have a Facebook group, Parenting Empathic Children. So those are
Oh,
two
beautiful.
quickest ways to find me out in the world.
Okay, perfect. And we'll put all of the links below. It was a pleasure to talk to you about your new project. I'm super excited that we get to do this while you're actually launching. I think it's very wonderful. I think you're gonna help and support so many beautiful souls around the globe and in your area. So if you're having a child and you're feeling that their sensitivity and the fact that they see the life differently maybe kind of is a little difficult by times and you want to have support, please connect with Darlene. And it was such a pleasure to connect with you, beautiful soul.
You as well. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Connect to you soon. Bye, everyone. See you in the next one.